Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nedling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Nedling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to take your business or your life to the next level. Today, I'm very excited to have Dr. Daved Rosensweet as my guest. And let me give you some background of Dr. Rosensweet. So he graduated from University of Michigan Medical School in 1968 and has been in private medical practice since 1971 and has had offices in New Mexico, California, and Colorado, and is currently in practice in Southwest Florida. You decided to get some heat again, huh, since Mexico. He's the author of books, Menopause and Natural Hormones, and Happy, Healthy Hormones, How to Thrive in Menopause. He's a nationally known lecturer and frequent presenter at A4M, and also a principal investigator for scientific study of female hormones, sponsored by the Metametrics, I think is how it's pronounced, clinical laboratory. And he's the organizer of a national summit committee on the treatment of women in menopause with bioidentical hormones. The topic today, of course, is going to be menopause. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Daved Rosensweet. And I think you can hear the birds in the background. They're all excited to hear too. Welcome to the podcast. So happy to have you.
Thank you, Vicki. It's good to be here.
And now I've gone way past menopause, and luckily it wasn't terrible for me, but I know so many family, friends, associates, and just people that I meet that have not had a great experience with menopause or are suffering through it right now. So before we get into all of the hard questions, I just want to ask you, I alluded to Florida, but what part of Florida do you call home?
Well, a couple things. One is we actually moved from Florida to North Carolina.
Oh, so you're closer to me now. Yeah.
Yes, I'm in outside of Asheville.
Oh, very nice area.
And then there was a curious statement you made called "I'm through menopause."
Yeah. And is that incorrect? Am I still?
Can I clarify that?
Yeah, do that for sure.
Young women and young men put out our maximum amount of ovarian and testicular hormones at about the age of 20, plus or minus a couple of years. And then we gradually decline.
Mm-hmm.
And we never stop declining until we leave Earth.
Ah, yes.
And women's pattern is a little different. Women decline, and then there's a precipitous decline, total loss pretty much at midlife. Men's decline is as profound, and it's just more gradual. It's just there isn't that moment of precipitous decline. Mm-hmm. It's happening to both men and women, and it creeps up on you. There's a certain percentage of women, we think 16%, that have an easy menopause, and you're the women we're most concerned about, because the other women, the 84%, have what almost life-stopping or really disruptive symptoms that are really rough, and they don't let up. And it's these 86% that are highly motivated to do something about it. They need to. They can't continue their empowered basic life without it. But in all women and in all men, these hormones are so powerful that their losses ultimately result in what a gerontologist specialist told our senior medical class in 1968. Here's what's happening to older folks. You guys know thousands of diagnoses, but the main thing that's happening is they're losing their muscle. They can't stand with stability. They fall on their osteoporotic hips, fracture them, and they die.
Mm.
And so he said, so if you want to do something for the elderly, help them with their muscles and bones. And we estimate, colleagues of mine and I estimate that 80 to 90% of women and men who are in assisted living facilities and nursing homes are there primarily because they lost their sex steroids. So it happens to everybody.
Yeah.
And the women we're most concerned about are the women who say, well, I'm through menopause, or I had a very easy menopause, because there's no motivation there. But the same bone losses, the same loss of muscle, amongst many other things, occur to all of us, men and women.
Yeah. So I think I have my mom is in a wheelchair, and she's was only 5'2" when she started, and now she's like 4'10". So I've had that motivation, because I always think that's somewhat hereditary, things like that. So I do things to try to keep my muscle and my bones in good shape. Luckily, I've only broken a finger and a toe. But it is very true. I'm 65 now, and whenever I turned my upper 50s, I started doing things because I knew I was going to have grandkids, and I wanted to be able to chase after them and run after them and do things with them, and not have to say, oh, every 5 minutes. So I do try to do those things, but that's very interesting statistic you have there. And I think one of my motivators was one of the people that worked for me, literally her shirt would be soaking wet midday. So we had to, deal with all those sweats and things like that, and having trouble sleep. And so I have made sure that I get the sleep that I need and things like that. But I know, again, that those are things that bother. I wanted to ask you, though, as a doctor, what was your why for focusing on menopause and women's health?
Well, can I answer that question second? Because I feel I left something out.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
That it's almost impossible to preserve the muscles and the bones without testosterone and without estrogen. So the reason that most people wind up in assisted living is they've lost their testosterone and not replenishing it. And a woman has more testosterone than she's got her most potent estrogen, estradiol. So why I'm saying this is, I have strong opinions.
So you're saying I should be adding hormone therapy or something, which I always avoided that because I was afraid of. And again, when I was in my 40s, early 40s is when I had menopause.
And we address that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a poignant topic right there.
Yeah. But
you were afraid.
The doctors didn't have a lot of insight as to any bad things about having hormone therapy. And so I was afraid, yes. I tried not to do anything that's not.
Can I address that?
Sure, absolutely.
Women and men have been replenishing hormones for the last 1,000 years. And in the early 1940s, the pharmaceutical industry developed a way to make great, huge supplies of women's hormones. They did it through catheterizing pregnant horses, mares, and they produced two hormones, Premarin and its sister, Prempro. And 40% of all American women were on Premarin or Prempro by 2002, 18 million American women, 40% of those who were in menopause. And you know what? They did terrific. They did so much better than their compatriots. But out comes this false reported study in 2002 that scared women and healthcare providers all over the planet. It was drastic and dramatic. The 18 million dropped to 1 million, something like that, overnight. And what that false reporting stated, because it was false, that women who were at risk for breast cancer, heart attack, and stroke if they took hormones.
Yeah.
But when you read the study, it wasn't in the study. The press got a hold of something in a press conference, and they blasted it out, and very few people took the time to read the study. The study actually showed that women who were on Premarin alone were at less risk for breast cancer, 21% less risk than women who did not receive Premarin, and that women who were on Prem Pro, the Premarin combined with a progestin molecule, they did not have a statistically significant increase in risk. It said so right in the paper. It said no statistically insignificant, but they didn't read it that way. That wasn't reported that way, and very few physicians even looked at the actual article. Yeah. I did. I was alarmed. Am I putting my patients at risk? But when I saw that and saw the European literature, I went, this is false. Well, the original report was retracted in 2016 by the original study committee. They said after 18 years of follow-up, there is no increased risk. But hardly anyone has heard of that.
Yeah.
Everyone's living with this false impression of risk. And I'd like to give your audience the true science as it's well known.
Sure.
It'll only take me a minute.
No, take as long as you want. I mean, you're educating me too. maybe at 65, I need to start doing
And this isn't coming from me. I mean, this is coming straight out of the medical literature. It's coming out of a world expert, a breast cancer specialist, an oncologist, a cancer specialist who wrote a book called Estrogen Matters. So if anyone's interested in learning a little more about it, you can go right to the book that you're offering. In chapter 3, I discuss risk.
Awesome.
And they can go right to the Bible of risk, which is Dr. Blooming's book. But here's the science. We're all at risk for thousands of diagnoses. Every doctor in the world knows this. Yeah. And some of them are not good. And we're all at risk for cancers, hundreds of them. And as a male, I have an increased relative risk for prostate cancer, and there's reasons for that. And women do have an increased relative risk for breast cancer, and there's reasons for that. It wasn't always this way. Not when I was in medical school. Breast cancer was just one of hundreds and hundreds of cancers. But given that we're all at risk, women who are treated with hormones are at less risk for breast cancer, heart attack, and stroke than women who go untreated. Even women who've had breast cancer and have had that breast cancer properly treated, they have an increased relative risk for recurrence than a woman does for developing breast cancer in the beginning. However, they're at less risk for recurrence if they're treated with hormones than if they're not treated. I wanted to clarify that because, of course, doing the work I'm doing, I meet up with every single day for the last 20 years. Yeah. Very concerned that you're expressing, and it's heart-rendering to me because so many women, they didn't want to put themselves at risk. Yeah. But they were given the false information. And it's almost a certainty, hate to say it, but it's almost a certainty that these other things happen from not getting the hormones replenished, right down to assisted living and nursing homes. So anyway, thanks for giving me the airtime. It's one of the most
thanks
challenging.
For giving me advice that I need to talk to my primary care doctor.
Now, they may or may not be aware of it. Physicians love for the most part, love and are become more and more expert at what they're interested in or what their specialty is. And they can't even keep up with their specialty. I tell you, it's so much information. It's fantastic. And they love that. And they do that for the most part, almost every physician I've ever met. But they've steered away from the world of hormones because they got frightened.
Yeah.
And they're usually, and because I live in this particular world of medicine, I very rarely run across a physician who has been given the new information. It just never spread. So to consult even your gynecologist, even the gynecologic societies, and gynecologists are amazing. Their body of knowledge and their expertise is phenomenal, but not in hormones.
Yeah.
They're surgeons. They love procedures. Bless their hearts. We need them desperately for this. But they're not, for the most part, there are exceptions. They're not into hormones. So they're still living with, and their medical societies are still saying the same thing. They have not yet come out with and saying, wait a minute, we made a mistake here.
Yeah.
They haven't done it. So if you can solve your most treasured, beloved physician, it's very unlikely that they have been exposed to the actual information. Well, there's people out there beating the bushes trying to get this information exposed.
Well, my gynecologist retired. She's the same age as I am, so she retired. So I'll seek out a new one that maybe is more forward thinking, if you will. We started to talk a little bit about menopause and the negatives, if you will, but can a woman really thrive as they're going through menopause?
Absolutely. And thrive is the correct word. Because here, midlife, many women are at the peak of their knowledge, their experience, their happiness, their vitality, their empowerment.
Right.
And then all they have to do is link up with someone who knows how to replenish their hormones with precision and individuality, and women thrive and stay thriving. They don't stop.
Right.
And I'm talking about so many functions like the healthy functioning brain and arteries and protection from coronary artery disease and healthy vaginas and bladders that you don't lose control and libido. And there's women who are having active intimacy in their 70s and 80s and 90s. And for the most part, those women are on hormones.
Very good.
And you can see the difference, and you can see it in some movie stars because many of them have been long aware that hormones are good and they're not afraid of them. And so, yes, thrive is the word.
And really, as someone that is in her 60s, thrive is what I want to do. I started this new business in 2021. And I'm loving this, I'm actually doing what I love, but my health is important to that. As a speaker, trainer, and coach, I have to be able to thrive and be able to withstand the schedule that I keep.
The same is true for men, Vicki. It's not like this is exclusive to women. And when Viagra came on the market, the erectile dysfunction drug, there was an explosion of knowledge, certainly in the medical community, that, men are not doing this well.
Yeah.
They're losing it. And they're not just losing their erectile function, they're losing their muscles.
Yeah.
They're losing their mood. They're losing their drive. They're losing their energy. They're losing their vitality.
Yeah.
So this is not exclusive to women by any means. So we treat men as well, absolutely.
Yeah. I used to tease my husband that he had worse hot flashes than I did.
Yeah.
That came, I think, from taking niacin. Can you talk about the individualized treatment that I read in your bio about? Delve into a little bit more about this individualized treatment that you talked about?
Well, women and men, I mean, I'm a male. I look like a lot of males. And women in general, we could say, well, we all sort of are alike. We're built the same, but it's not true.
Yeah.
There's tremendous individual variation. So, for example, there's some young women that in order to menstruate regularly and be fertile and carry a pregnancy, they have, relatively speaking, this much estrogen. Whereas other young women who are healthy, vital, regularly menstruating, they have this much estrogen, and they each one need the amount they have. And this can be 3 times the amount of this. And then there's 3 other ovarian hormones that are equally as important: progesterone, testosterone, DHEA. And the same variation can be in those. Some women are healthy, strong, muscular, runners, exercisers at this amount of testosterone. Other women, to have the same vitality, they need this much testosterone. Now, that's 4 hormones. DHEA is in there too, and so is progesterone. When you show the individual variation, because some women are rich in estrogen, but relatively lower in progesterone and maybe medium in testosterone. Other women are richest in progesterone, lowish in estrogen. All these are healthy. And maybe high in testosterone. All of these things are variables. In clinical practice, there's no problem whatsoever. All we do is individualize it woman to woman. We do the exact same process, but to be aware of that precision, that one dose does not fit all. And even in the days when one dose was given of Premarin, for example, and then there was 2 doses, even without that specificity or individuality, these women did a lot better than everyone else. But the really elegant, excellent, you take a very high value to excellence. I could tell by reading some things about you. In fact, you're asking the highest in excellence. Bravo. Well, to get that at the most excellent, you want to get it right. And once you get it right, you're pretty much set for the rest of your life. Minor tweaks year after year, minor tweaks, but getting that individuality right. Well, we all want to do what's best for our bodies and for our lives. And so that degree of specificity is important.
Right. So one of the other, not unique, 1 in 4 women have this. So I lost my ovarian tube when I was 25 or 24 years old. And so I only have 1. And I had 4 pregnancies and 2 full term. And so what does that, when you only have 1 set of ovaries, ovarian tubes, what does that do to your level of, or does it make no difference to the level of hormones you have?
To a young woman, very often it's almost unnoticeable. Sometimes it is, but just like you proved, you only need 1 tube, 1 egg to get pregnant out of hundreds of thousands of eggs. And then once there comes a time in your life and every woman's life where the ovaries no longer function and they shrivel up, actually, and they're no longer putting out hormones. And that's pretty much the same. Doesn't matter if you have 1 or 2, none of them are functioning.
Right. Very good.
And so it's not a big deal usually. Sometimes when a woman has an ovary removed, it's compromising, but a lot of times it isn't, and you never drop a beat. And
no, mine was I dropped a beat, but anyway, it was okay after it was taken out. So how do bioidentical hormones work? And obviously I have never heard that term before, bioidentical.
Well, it's interesting, the history of supplying hormones to men and women. The first record we have of it is the Chinese did it about 1,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
The aristocracy set up these outhouses for young women and a separate outhouse for young men. And they collected the urine of the young women in one batch and the urine of the young, healthy men in another batch. And they dried out these urines. And what's present in the residual is a powder, and those powder contain hormones.
Oh.
And they fed those hormones to the aristocracy. And then fast forward to the 1940s, the pharmaceutical industry wanted to address menopause, and they did a very similar process. Well, the earliest stuff in the United States, they collected pregnant women's urine, but it was too expensive and too difficult. So the pharmaceutical industry turned towards collecting the urine of pregnant horses. And there's enough estrogen in horses. Not 50% of what's in horses is not seen in the human woman, but 50% are. So that when you dry out horse urine and you give that to women, you're giving them hormones.
Mm-hmm.
And it worked, and it still works, and they're still doing it today. But then in the 1980s, two independent folks, a medical doctor in around Seattle area and a pharmacist, a compounding pharmacist in the Dallas area, simultaneously had this flash. They knew that the pharmaceutical industry was refining plant-based hormones to provide pure estradiol for the birth control pill. They were aware of that, and they both said, I wonder if our pharmacists could get a hold of the molecularly pure estradiol and other hormones. And they did. And they purchased the pure, highly refined, beautifully done. It's basically derived from soy. Because plants have these precursors to hormones in them. And so they extracted the precursor and very exact in a very exacting chemical environment, converted the precursor to hormones to the actual molecule that's identical to the molecule that came out of the ovary.
Oh, wow.
And they've been doing that since the early 1980s. And there's 7,500 of these pharmacists who are they're taking the powders that they purchase ultimately from the pharmaceutical industry. That's where they derive from. And they put them up in creams and gels and pills and capsules. And they've been doing that since the 1980s. So bioidentical means the molecule of, for example, estradiol that came out of your ovary and the molecule that these compounding pharmacists are providing are identical. They're the same thing. You can't tell them apart. We like that. It made sense to me. Why not use plant-derived pure hormones? I'm a big tent sort of person in the sense that however women find their way to whatever hormones are being offered, if they're under the care of someone who really knows what they're doing, they're gonna benefit. That spans the spectrum from Premarin all the way to the most exact copy of a molecule, the bioidenticals. All of it's going to do good if you get some good treatment. But I favor bioidenticals.
Right, the plant-based. So is there a cost impediment to hormone therapy anymore?
There is. Insurance companies will honor a pharmaceutically manufactured hormone, and they'll usually, not always, but usually stay away from paying for a compounded bioidentical hormone. There are exceptions. And so there is a cost barrier there. And when one of our partners came on board, he did some significant research into that cost barrier. And because I had trained so many physicians and nurse practitioners, he approached a nationally licensed compounding pharmacy and said, look, we've got a lot of women that you could be dispensing. And so we've come out in 2 weeks or maybe 4, after years of working on it, we'll be able to offer hormones at a very, very low cost, half of what, or a third of
Awesome.
what, all 4 ovarian hormones, and same for men. So the price is coming down, but the United States hasn't gotten wise to this yet, but they have in Europe. The National Health Services in Britain and in, I think, the Scandinavian countries, they're offering the hormones free.
Oh, wow.
Because they realize that if they offer, they're going to sustain the health and they're going to reduce their overall nursing home
Yeah, that's
assisted
what I was
living
thinking.
costs
Right.
so dramatically that it pays for them to give the hormones out for no charge.
Yeah.
May the United States catch up on this particular practice.
Yeah, for
ASAP.
sure. Yeah, if you keep people healthy, then insurance doesn't have to pay for anything.
That's right.
So we are almost out of time. So I wonder if you could just think back to when you were 20 years old. What advice do you think you'd like to have given yourself at that time? Now, knowing
Oh
what
my
you know
goodness.
now.
Well, I think the advice I'd like to have given my 20-year-old self is the advice I started hearing in my early 30s was take on the project of healing myself, healing my emotions and my mind and my consciousness, and to become a better man and become a better spouse and a better father. Well, I did hear it. I didn't hear it at 20. I was a good guy, but I had a lot of dysfunctionality going on. And but I did hear it in my 30s. So it took me about 15 years to hear the advice and take it to heart. And so I'm so grateful I have. That's take on my
awesome.
personal healing.
So in the rapid fire question, just have 2 today. One is, what are 2 or 3 points that you really want the audience to take away from this talk today?
In medicine, the replenishing of hormones is the most potent and wonderful and safe thing you can possibly do for yourself. Take it on, read my book, embrace it like manna from heaven, because it is.
Awesome. And then, so what's next in this journey that you have? You have another book, or
I'm active. I work about 50 hours a week. I love what I do. I have an amazing partners and team that I get teary-eyed when I just think about how much love I feel for these folks. And we've got a major project. We'd like to see, at the core of our mission is we feel like this world desperately needs more feminine energy in the halls of decision, in the family, in business, and in politics. And we feel like the greatest contribution we can make to that is empowering midlife women. So we'd like to see, there's about 6 million women, maybe 8 million now back on hormones after there was 18 million in 2002.
Yeah.
See 100 million women in the United States on these hormones. And we feel like the feminine energy would emerge and wars would cease and golden rule would everyone would move towards the golden rule. So that's our mission, and we're serious about it.
Yeah, yours, you and I are so aligned. One of my leadership tracks that I teach is leading with the heart, the head, and the hands. And that's really to take that feminine energy and kind of balance it with the masculine energy.
Yes,
but
absolutely.
Really, that's what changed my trajectory in my career at 50, when I just stopped trying to lead like a man and lead from my heart and my gut. And things have worked out quite well since then. So it's been awesome talking with you. I'm going to share my screen right now. Oh, the screen that I'm going to show is for the people that are watching. If you're just listening, I will have all this information on my YouTube as well as my website. But if you want to grab a paper and pencil right now so that you can write down the website information, you can do so. And I will share my screen now. For those that are watching, you can grab a screenshot. So we see that Daved Rosensweet, and again, David is with an ED, not ID. And his contact information is that he's at https://www.brite.live. Again, brite.live. And you can get a copy of his book, and I'll let David talk to you about that book.
Well, I originally wrote it for women, and it's now in its 7th or 8th edition. Mm-hmm. Because in the beginning, not much was known about hormones, certainly by me or by many people. But I figured if I gave women a certain amount of information, and we started low and gradually increased the hormones, and the hormones were going into their body, we'd figure it out. And we did.
Awesome.
And so this book is about what I think is the most important things for women to think about and to understand as you meet up with this topic of, do I want to do anything about this menopause situation?
And you can go to https:// like index, O object, B boy, I index again, M Mary.org/book, IOBIM.org/book. And again, all this information will be on YouTube as well as my website, thefindyourleadershipconfidence.com. Please do visit the website, brite.live, and learn more about Daved Rosensweet, MD, to be able to see if you have need of services that hormones, or I guess the benefits of hormone therapy, can give to you. I know I will be reading his books and investigating this, because I do want to have my next, hopefully 40 years be good ones. Well, it's been just wonderful talking with you. I learned quite a lot today. I think you have intrigued me enough to do something more. And as I said, I am all about being able to thrive in my golden years. As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey, and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Nettling, signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Nettling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.